Hello, everybody. I want to say thank you for listening. And, of course, the viewers that's with us today, the Henderson Real News Show, as usual, is called Organize, Don't Criticize. I understand, folks, that there are a lot of people in the world that's always criticizing their friends and enemies, and their enemies' relatives and the people that support them, versus doing something for themselves, like organizing themselves into teams, pooling their resources, and putting an agenda together that's going to take care of their political, education, religious, and all the principles of leadership that they need to determine their destiny from birth to death. That's what you will hear every time you listen to the L. Henderson Real News Show, Organize, Don't Criticize, or the Doc and Sock Show, which will follow this one. That's all you're going to hear. Telling you again and again that black people are not respected in America, nor in the world, and if they want to gain the status that they deserve as human beings, they must pool the resources and control in the area where they're in a majority, starting on the precinct level, all over the world. There's no reason to have black and so-called colored people, about 2/3 of the population in the world, and they only have about 3% control in those areas that I mentioned. Any group that can't control his education and training, his economic development, his politics, and of course his religion, and then provide the leaders he needs to continue this for about 3 or 4 generations, is never going to get any respect by the so-called other ethnic groups in the world. He will always be a non-entity. He will suffer what I call the consequences of evil. He will eventually hate himself, and thus his generation will get worse and worse socially, less respect every generation, until they are usually ended up in a relocation camp somewhere, or a refugee, or put in prison. That is the story of outcast people throughout the history of the world. The rule is, if you want to be a dominant player, you have to pool your resources and fight for what you want. You don't have this so-called nonviolence idea when you are being promoted through violence, the agenda of others that are being promoted through violence. Prayer has destroyed too many people in the world. Pray and no work, no planning. And that's why we're here today to talk about organizing, don't criticize, and because I have an expert here, a human development expert with us, and he's going to be my co-host this evening. And I guarantee you we will have some solutions, because we will be addressing local issues in Mississippi and the region. We will talk about national issues, international issues, and our goal this evening is to give a summary of the problems we have and eventually come up with solutions to these problems that black people and so-called colored people of the world can change their lives, their status, and their families in 30, 60, or 90 days. It can be done. So at this time, I want to introduce my co-host, Mr. Purvis Williams. I call him a human development specialist. He might call himself something else, but I don't care what he calls himself. That is what he does, looking out for the interests of himself, his family, and then black people throughout the world. So, Mr. Williams, I'm pleased to have you here today, sir, and I hope you are ready to share your ideas, and I want you to share them because you're not going to get fired. I can guarantee you, you will not be fired today. You say whatever you want to say because your ideas are strong. You have planned things for years. You were talking about your economic development initiatives when you were in transportation.
Yes, sir.
How you had planned. So tell us who you are, sir, what you have been doing for the last 15 years that's related to your goals and objectives, and anything else you want, and then I have some questions for you. And if you don't mind, you can ask me something about this and that. whatever that means.
No doubt. Just want to thank you first, Dr. Henderson, for having me on your show. It's an honor, again, to be here. Past 15 years, I've done a couple of different things. Worked for Comcast. I think that's one of the things I did that really got me in touch with the people. It was really an in-house communication with them. So being that technician at the time, I think this was 2008 when I started with them. So that was a great experience. I want to say 2009, maybe 2009. However, what it actually led me to was the creation of Project Humanity and United America Project, which is my humanitarian effort to assist in aiding America and the world at trying to get ourselves back together.
Mr. Williams, now,
Yes, sir.
as you see, I always have an input here and there.
Mhm.
And I understand you say humanity. Now, you're saying you're going to address the problem for all humanities, or
Right.
you're going to be a specialist and look out for certain groups. And if you're not, how are you going to solve all the problems for humanity? And what are you going to attack first?
Yes, I did say humanitarian. So no, I do not have well, yes, I do have a specific group. Let me take that back. I do have a specific group in which I'm helping. God's people.
God's
That's my
people.
specific group. The people who understand that we are to treat each other as we want to be treated. Not the ones who are all about how can I get the bag full in spite of how it affects other people.
What-
See,
Go
right,
ahead.
right now we have a lot of people who don't care about anybody but themselves. It's me, me, me. Fill up my bags, get my bank account full, and then we don't care how it affects anybody else. That's why we have dirty water. That's why we have deforestation, and that's why we have all these landfills out here, because nobody wants to take the responsibility to look for the future and say, hey, how about we remodel some of these old buildings? How about we recycle some of this trash? How about we quit advancing into nature and start rebuilding what we've already destroyed?
Well, now, how do you think they can economically do that when they have more and more pressing problems in all categories: politics, economic development, religion, wars and rumors of wars, human distrust, and the deal that mankind is in a position now where he is so upset with America, with the nation and the world, he want to leave and go in space. So now how are you going to address all these issues and think you're going to have some kind of human parity on Earth?
Once again, we have to address these issues to God's people. Now, I'm a person who is not going to sit here and say I do everything and that I'm the champion, because I know that God has provided this opportunity for me. I didn't deserve it. I didn't ask for it. I didn't go after it. This was given to me. So this is God doing God's work. So when I received those plans that we discussed that talk about how we changed the schedule for the schools so that both parents can be involved in that child's upbringing, how it discusses the bridge between elders and youth so that technology can start to spread upward and wisdom and understanding can spread down. And it also talks about how we address mental health, not as a stigma, but as a serious issue. Just like we have clean water issues in Jackson, mental health is an issue across the world, and it's been neglected. So we're asked to be strong, asked to forget, asked to not live in the past, but most of us are stuck in trauma because we don't even know we're experiencing trauma a lot of times.
Well, tell me this, and since mental health is one of your predominant issues,
Yes,
would
sir.
you think if you would resolve that issue to the point where most people that have that problem can be what I call semi-independent, that you will cause other things to decrease, like homelessness,
Yes.
family abuse, homicides,
Yeah.
and things of that nature. Now, since you know this, you must not be working with a lot of God's people, because the people that are causing these problems and perpetuating these problems are the preachers, the politicians, and the corporate leaders throughout the
But
world.
who said that those are God's people?
Well, that's what I want to ask.
No, see,
I'm
God's
asking you.
people, God's people have been quiet.
No, that's why things are happening.
And that's one of the things I've heard you mention on previous shows is, what if this is the world and these are the preachers, these are not your words, I'm kind of,
Right.
paraphrasing it all up, but we're going in the wrong direction if we're following this leadership.
Well, that's what I've been talking about for years, because I have been looking for God's people
Right.
for years. I would say at least 50 years, and here you are. You have found them, I guess. You might know who some of them are, and if you do, I want you to share that with me. You don't have to do it on this show, but I want to know who they are so I can contact them and let them help me do some of the things that I'm planning for humanity.
Well, you know them by their works. What are they doing? What are they trying to do? See, we a lot of times looking at people and saying he has this mega church and has all this mega money. Well, that doesn't look like God's people to me. It may look like it to you, but it looks to me as if someone has found a way of explaining their love for possessions.
Mr. Williams, now it appears that you want to say that the big mega church sponsors, especially the pastors and their supporters, are not using their resources
No, they're not.
correctly, and you are about to condemn those people and say they are taking money and using it for self, family, and their personal and private interests.
I use righteous judgment, as we should use. I'm not condemning anybody. We'll let God handle that part. Or I will condemn somebody every once in a while. Yes, I will condemn you. Because, damn it, excuse my language, Dr.
Go
Henderson.
ahead, sir, go ahead.
It's a shame that someone would claim to be a follower of Jesus, but also in a Bentley. You in the Bentley pastor. I ain't talking about the man who may have invented something or created this new computer or website. And the craziest thing is most of the people who have the most aren't in the Bentleys. It's usually the show off in the Bentley. I need to be seen guy. So for the preacher to be in the Bentley, even if it was a donation, there's a way to look at this with righteous eyes. And let's just think about how many people can we feed with one Bentley? How many homes can we remodel with one Bentley? How many children can we put through college just with one Bentley?
Well, you
So
can do hundreds, sir.
So you want to tell me that preacher in the Bentley is doing God's work?
I can't say yes to that. I cannot. I don't think that's appropriate. If I would say that, I would have to go and apologize to a lot of people I know that are in this business, in this religious business, that have these big churches, big denominations, and say they are representative of God.
They're not. They are representative of the God of this world, who is Lucifer, the love of money, the root of all evil. So I'm not sitting here and trying to say that everybody is in the same boat, but I'm saying what they're doing does not look like the teachings of Jesus.
Well, let me tell you again, I'm going to have to disagree with you, Mr. Williams,
ones you
on the
disagree
love
on?
of money. Now, there's nothing
That's
wrong.
the root of all evil, the love of money.
No, the root of all evil is the lack of money.
No.
You better love to get as much money as you can get, so
All right.
you can eliminate some of these evil things
So-
that's happening throughout the world.
Now, I'll say this. I disagree with that. The love of money is why women and men do horrendous things. Because of money. People have sold their children. They've sold their bodies. They've killed people for money. Now, money itself is good and beneficial. It's the person who has it, the possessor, becomes possessed. It is not the money itself. Money can feed people. It can house people. It can put clothes on back and put kids through school. That's what money can do. It's the person. Money doesn't have feelings. People have feelings.
Well,
so people love money.
Well,
and that creates the root of all evil. It's not the money itself.
well, let me suggest something, sir. If you want to encourage people to think about the good, encourage them to get the money first and then teach them how to spend it. Because if you are saying that one should get money and do good with it before they get it, that's going to cut down on a lot of people acquiring the monetary resources they need, in my opinion, because they don't think they can use it for what they want. You have to help people get what they really need and then teach and train them by example and let them be a humanitarian like you. I'd rather have 10 million rich people than 10 million people that's out here surviving and working and making the equivalent of a minimum wage.
Now, that I do agree with you. Now, but let's say this. Why are there so many people making that minimum wage? Why are there so many people who can't afford housing? Why are there so many homeless veterans out here? It is all because this country, this capitalistic country, loves money. So rather than taking the time and the resources to fund homeless shelters, fund mental health, fund these schools, they would rather keep it for themselves.
Well, they will, but see, the thing is, since we don't have democracy in the world, you're always going to have that. So that's why you have to do the old thing that I have been teaching for years. You have to recruit people. You have to train people. You have to select the people that you train and then select them and put them in positions of responsibility in government, in politics, in religion. So that's what we must do, because the current people that you're talking about are not going to change their status at all, because they want to do more to promote it and have more Bentleys, as you call it, and more turmoil throughout the world. Because most people are not concerned about the homeless, the mental unwell people, and those that are doing everything else they want to do.
And I agree with you. It is going to be a challenge to make this change, but it's kind of like they say the first person who starts it isn't the most important person. It's the second person who joins in, because a leader is only as good as his first follower.
Exactly.
That first follower brings in the second, the third, and then you have this this ripple effect of a participation, so to speak. So what we really need is one of God's people to show up, just one. See, what we have is plans already outlined. So what we need is the funding. I'm looking for the funding. I'm sending out the letters to people or companies who could possibly fund what the plans detail. So we just need one good one. And I'll actually say, the Comcast I used to work for a long time ago, they actually have started a elder and youth bridge with technology. I saw a commercial for it a few days ago, and I was excited because I put those plans out there for that reason, for someone to say, hey, this is a good idea, let's build on it.
Okay.
So I'm happy to see that they did that. There are a lot more parts of that plan that are still that need to be tapped into. So hopefully a few of the letters I sent out, somebody will grab a hold to it.
Someone will. But now I think the solution is already in place in Mississippi. That's why I want to talk about local politics. Now, we have some of the smartest politicians in the world in Mississippi.
We do.
Most of them are lawyers. Most of them have a lot of experience in leadership. Most of these people have family members that have always been in leadership positions. They have the money and the resources. They have great education. They have contacts with the industrial leaders throughout the state and throughout the nation. and they have wives that support them at home and do everything they tell them to do, and the kids are being trained to follow them. So now, if this is the case, you have to then assume that these people that I'm talking about control the money, and I'm basically talking about politicians, elected and appointed, and corporate leaders.
Right.
Now, you did say your company, former company, did put a program in effect that will help somewhat solve the
Yes,
problems
it
we're
is.
addressing. Now, what about the politicians in Mississippi? On the local level, have you had any help there?
Now, I have had an opportunity. Now, this was when I first got to Jackson, Mississippi. I had an opportunity to sit down and talk to DeKeitha Stamps. I think he was recently elected to
Public Service Commission.
Service Commissioner, right. And actually, when I first met him, that's one of the jobs he mentioned he wanted. So it's extremely glad to see him in that position today. So I had a chance to meet with DeKeitha Stamps. However, at the time when we met, I didn't have these plans. So I do need to reach back out to him. It's been a few years since we had a chance to sit down. So I would like to send those plans to him, because there is a portion of that plan that he could be extremely important in. The mental health, online therapy. We're going to need those internet services in all those rural communities. We're going to need those public services to get out there to those people who desperately need it in communities that are not easily accessible.
Well,
You
let
know.
me tell you something. Since you're a God man, it appears then that Mr. DeKeitha Stamps is one of your disciples, because he started off in politics as a city councilman. Then he moved to the legislature, and now he has a regional position as Commissioner of Public Service. He's one of three.
Right.
And he has the money to do exactly what you want, because one of his major platforms, one is providing broadband
Right.
for his district. The other one, according to our research, is working with the Jackson water crisis. He's going to help eliminate that. And the last one is to make sure that we have fair utilities for the people in his district and the state of Mississippi.
Right.
So you have made the contact early, and you might be doing yourself a favor if you would call him. He's a good man, has a
He
good
is.
background, and some strong parents, hard-working people.
He is a very good man. But I wouldn't call that person my disciple. I'm not a leader to anyone. I would prefer you stand beside me so I can hear and see you. Can we walk together so that we can protect each other? If I'm walking beside you and I see, and I'm talking, and you're looking ahead and you see a hole, you can say, hey brother, stop. Don't go any further. You'll fall in that hole. But if you're my disciple and you're following me, and I'm walking along and I fall in the hole, you're coming with me. So I would rather have certain words be looked at differently, because I'm a power of the word kind of guy, and I would rather for us to be united by side, all as so-called not so much leaders, but going after God's work.
Okay.
You know, go after God's business, unified side by side, not a follower, not a disciple.
You believe that old sociological term that called collective association, where everyone in the world that's working on the same issue has talked to each other. They're going forward. They're looking out for each other, pool the ideas. Everyone is not the leader. It's a change in leadership from time to time.
Right.
You look at what you're good at, and that's what you do.
Think about it. If we had a leader like Dr. King, when Dr. King falls, the movement is over.
Okay. Now, I'm glad you brought that up.
I don't want that to ever happen again.
You don't. Well, now let's look at this here. You're talking about Dr. King, one of the greatest men that were alive during the last 90 years.
You know something I heard yesterday?
What was that?
They said that Dr. King wasn't great until he got killed.
Well, that's usually what people say, but that's a little erroneous.
Well, they said that the popularity,
Right.
the people actually following and listening, you know, there was a movement with him, but it wasn't. He was hated, they said. Now, this is something I just recently heard, and it kind of made sense because people love to praise you after you're dead.
Well, that is a fact in the world, but Dr. Martin Luther King did work hard with few resources, few people, because he was working with too many different groups that had different ideas. You know, they had a lot of people there, the Urban League and all kinds of Black Panthers and CORE, and just many different groups. Some were nonviolent, others were very destructive. They were robbing banks, killing each other, killing the police. And Martin Luther King and his folks believed in nonviolence. They didn't ever have enough resources to do anything they want. They had to beg the enemy for money. And when you have yourself in a position where you beg your opponents for support, you're going to be diluted to the point where you're not going to be able to achieve your goals.
Yeah.
So that is one of the reasons why he didn't have the popularity that you just mentioned during the time when he was working. He started as a young man against his will. I read his story, and it says basically when he was about 26 years of age, he was a young pastor at his church. The old pastors didn't want the job, and they had a meeting, and he sneezed, so to speak, stepped out the room, came back, and he was the chairman and the spokesperson.
Right.
They didn't talk about a salary, and he just started off working for nothing,
I heard that
and
too.
he gathered some support, and he was very unpopular, especially among the people that he was trying to help. And the people that he was trying to help were black folks, and he had a moral tone where he said, if I could get people to integrate with the human enemies of mankind, we will have more peace and harmony. And he said that he had a dream that this would happen. So I'm asking you, humanitarian,
Yes, sir.
what was the dream?
The dream is that one day, little white boys and little white girls, little black boys, little black girls, were able to hold hands and sing that old Negro spiritual, free at last, free at last. Thank God Almighty, we are free at last. Now, I think that dream is taking place.
Where?
It's all over the place. I have a lot of multicultural family members right now. Personally, friends, some of my better friends are not the same race as I am. Now, when we talk about growth and education, let's be honest. You can only teach me so much, and probably most of the stuff I know you already know. You know it, I know it, we know it, we grew up with it. So there's no growth there. But if we bring in a Hispanic person, a Mexican, an Asian person, an Italian person, someone from Russia, and we bring them in, and now I get to learn from each one of those persons about their culture, about how they like things, what they talk about. Now my brain again is growing. Now again I'm experiencing neural pathways being created. But while we're all in our little boxes, we're not growing. We're just repeating the same stuff. And that's where the frustration is coming from. That's where that anger is coming from. And that's where all that hate is coming from. Is because we're starting to hate the fact that we're in this box. And mentally, we don't even know that's the reason.
Well, I disagree. And as a co-host on this show,
This is your show.
No, I'm calling you a co-host today. That's why I want to say I disagree with you.
because you know you got to take commercials too now.
That's right. We do have a commercial coming up real soon. But I want to tell the viewers to listen and stay tuned. We have a commercial coming up, and we will be back, and I will be debating my co-host. And I'm going to talk to you, viewers and listeners, and my co-host about how his idea is one of the worst ideas he could declare in America.
What?
So, folks, stay tuned for the Eldridge Henderson Real News Show. Organize, don't criticize. We'll be back after several commercials.
SocratesGarrettENT.com is a diversified firm specializing in recycled aggregates and crushed concrete. SocratesGarrettENT.com's recycled materials provide the construction industry with significant economic and environmental benefits by recycling clean concrete rubble into M.DOT grade rock materials. Recycled aggregates and crushed concrete can be applied to driveways, road construction, bank protection, parking lots, general bulk fills, and more. For more information, please call 601-896-0084 or visit us online at SocratesGarrettENT.com.
Do you have something to say? Do you want your voice heard? Join the We Believe Global lineup. Be the star of your own show. For more info, call 800-492-5186, option number 1, or visit online at webelieve.global.
Okay, ladies and gentlemen, we are back with the Eldridge Henderson Real News Show. Organize, don't criticize. I have a guest here. We have a great humanitarian, Mr. Purvis Williams. He is in this show telling us and making me think that he might be too general in his presentation when he talks about diversity, unification, and listening to people that has an agenda that's not going to help him at all. Basically, he is saying, and I know this is not the way a lot of people handle their talk shows, but I handle mine the way I want to handle it, and that is I'm going to tell you that my guest is a great man. He is a humanitarian. He has some great ideas, but my job is not to support everything I hear, even though we are good friends. He is saying that Dr. Martin Luther King and some of his supporters moved around in the world, specifically first in America, looking for peace and harmony, and that they believed in divergent ideas coming from people that had their interests not in their mind at all. He is saying that Dr. Martin Luther King and his followers should have been calling in Hispanics, Cubans, whites, Puerto Ricans, Italians, and all getting advice so they can help black folks integrate America. And that is the reason why everywhere you go today in the world, you will find that black people catch more hell everywhere because of this so-called multicultural idea and concept, where they say every penny we get, we're going to share it with all the other minorities in the world. We're going to take their advice instead of identifying an area where they are in control, and when I say they, I'm talking about black folks, then call in others and get some input, but not let them dominate where you're in control. Because when the Hispanics, when the Italians, when the Jews, when the other Europeans get in a position where they have responsibility and control of the money and the budgets and make decisions who is going to hire, the black man is going to be last. History shows this. History also shows that if you are in a position of responsibility and you dominate those areas where you in the control, politics, religion, economic development, leadership positions of whatever, education and training, you then can make policies that's going to help your group become dominant, but at the same time, you can share some of those resources with others, but you don't give them the position of leadership and responsibility to determine your destiny. It is the black folks' destiny, in my opinion, is to look at his situation and say for 600 years or more in America, we have looked at integration as what we call self-preservation, that will change us and make us equal to others in America, and we will one day be equal to the Hispanics, the Jews, the Italians, the Cubans, and all the other groups in America and the world. History shows today that that has never happened. It will not happen any time during our lifetime. But Mr. Williams here is a prophet, in my opinion, and I'm going to ask him again, can you give us some examples, sir, where this multicultural idea has been used anywhere in Mississippi, America, or the world where there has been so much peace, where there has been no wars among the people that you mentioned?
Well, again, Dr. Henderson, when you bring something new to the people, there is no example. This is new. See, when Moses parted the Red Sea, that was new. When Noah built the boat, that was new. When Elijah brought the fire down on them, that was new. See, we bringing a new thing to you, something you haven't seen before. I don't expect you to understand it, but what I do know is we get along a lot better when it's a lot of us together that share God's vision and not an individual vision. See, I'm not sitting here with a black vision for the black people, or a vision for Christianity, or a vision for Muslims, or a vision for any groups other than humanity. See, we are separated visually, even though we know don't judge by appearance. How many white people have broken into your home?
A few.
How many? How many stole your car? How many stole your TV at the house? None of these things have happened to me by white people, so I don't hate them, nor do I hate the black people who did it.
Well, let me tell you
So
what
again, are you basing everything on visual appearance?
No, I'm basing what I'm saying on reality. Now,
Once
I didn't
again,
have,
this is
let me
new.
just give you an example of what you were telling me. You say, how many white folks stole my television set? How many
Now, you know
stole
what I
my
meant by
car?
that now.
I know what it meant.
You know what I meant.
But the viewers might not.
You stay out around the white people, so you.
The viewers and listeners might not understand what you are saying. Now, they didn't walk into my house and steal my car or my television set, but they made it possible where most of my people couldn't own a decent car or a decent house or a decent television set because the racist miseducation and misallocation of economic resources, including taxes, that were not put in my area where I could do the things I want to do without being protesting and begging for my own rights.
Now, I'm not going to say that I disagree with that, but as a humanitarian, I'll say it didn't just happen to you and people who look like you. See, the news, that controlled information that we receive, that controlled narrative that we get, it doesn't tell you that that same thing is happening over across the bridge in Pearl. It doesn't tell you that in Peleahatchee that same thing is happening to the whites up there. They don't tell you anything other than you. And the reason they do that is because the power of the word, you're using it against yourself. So when you feel like they holding me down and they need to get what we get and they deserve to have what we had and then pay them back, those words you putting out come right back on you. Now, when you go over there to Pearl, you know, trailers and barefoot. You know that.
I understand that.
So don't sit over here and act like the black people the only ones that's being held down and we the ones being oppressed. No, we're the ones they're showing you on TV. I've been to Kentucky. I've been all over this country as a truck driver. That's my other business. I own a truck company. I've seen things you all are not paying attention to. What I'm paying attention to is they're showing you people that look like me on TV so that we can be the problem with the power of the word. See, we're not respecting God's laws at all.
Well, see.
So that other group that's being neglected, that's not on the TV, that Dr. King actually tried to get together, those poor whites and the poor blacks, see, that narrative on TV keeps us divided. And that's why we see the wrong thing.
Well, see, you have to understand, Mr. Williams, what you are saying you have the prophet in your scope. You're talking things 500 to 1,000 years in the future.
No,
I'm talking about reality.
Right now.
It's not happening what you're talking about.
You trying to tell me them people ain't poor and pearl right now?
I'm not talking about those specific people.
So you trying to tell me that we the only ones poor in America?
No, I'm not saying that. You're misinterpreting what I'm saying.
What it sounds like is I'm supposed to help black folks only and disregard all the other poor people that's out here because y'all need help.
No, it's not like that. It's self first, family second,
and that's who I'm working for.
And then the community.
First. God first, not self.
And then community, sir.
God first. And God's people
If you don't
first.
look out for yourself, Mr. Williams, and your family, sir, then you will have the resources to work in the community.
Dr. Henderson, I agree with you about looking out for myself. However, it is God first, and God will provide for me so that I can provide for my family. And as I provide for my family, who is all of God's children, any flow over, that's the blessing. That's the blessing that we're looking for. God doesn't run out of money. God has an abundance. So when we're out here trying to chase, why don't we pray, have some faith, learn these laws, quit breaking them. That's number one. Quit breaking the dog. Quit breaking the laws. That's what you need to quit doing, and then you'll see your life get better. Trust me when I say this. I did not have an understanding of God's laws until about 3 years ago when it was forced upon me. I was beat down and I had to seek God, and when I sought God, God said, you ain't obeying my laws, and showed them to me. And I began to study them. And when I began to trust them, as scary as it is, my life just catapulted.
Well, you are very fortunate to have that vision, but 99% of the people have never had that vision and won't have it anytime soon because they are too concerned about looking for God's people and can't find any. I've been looking for God's people for a long time, and I haven't found very many at all, and I've looked at all races, all groups, all religious denominations. They have about 4,500 different religious denominations and groups, different groups in this country.
Right.
They have all kinds of politicians and different, what I call phases of politics, Republican, Democrats, totalitarians, all kind of imperialist people that are running over, destroying people, lands, nations, including outer space. And it appears to me that God is nowhere around, and that's why I guess he has you as one of the future prophets, and you will have your way maybe in 500 to 1,000 years. But currently, there is no humanity in America, in the world. Most groups hate each other, and I'm telling you now, with the religions, the politics, and the cultures that we have to deal with, there is no unity, there is no unification.
I disagree.
People are not practicing what I call collectivism. It is all separatism, and that is a historical fact as we see it today. Listen to me, I told you the other week, there are over 255 different wars going on between nations of the world. Currently, we're getting ready for World War III Part 1, and right now, if you look at the history of what's gone on in the last 3 months, it has already started.
It has.
And we're going to have World War III Part 1 and 2 by the end of the year. So where is this love of mankind and humanity that you're talking about? Even though I respect you for having that idea, but your time is nowhere close, sir. It's going to take 500 to 1,000 years for this to happen as you see it. And that's why God created prophets. And usually you will find that every time, if you read the Bible, the prophets were condemned, they were ostracized, did nobody have any respect for them. They didn't like them. Even the ones you mentioned, Noah and Job and all those others. Who paid any attention to Noah when he was building a boat?
Well, they called him crazy, thought he was insane. However, I'm in good company. Nobody likes me either. It doesn't bother me at all. God loves me. the few people who understand me, we are really in a good understanding because they know me as a person that I, shirt off your back is an understatement. So it doesn't bother me because, as you know, a pyramid is built like this. And the base of the pyramid is millions of bricks. Whereas when you get to the top, there's only a few stones.
And maybe one
right
at the extreme top.
Right. So what we're looking at for me is when I look at God removing people from my life or creating misunderstandings, well, I'm always trying to seek an understanding. So if we were to have a problem, the first thing I would do is go and find Mr. Garrett and see if he can mediate us so that we would be able to, stay together. And if that didn't work, then I would go and get the rest of the people out the office and say, man, Dr. Henderson and I can't get eye together. So can y'all mediate this and help us see eye to eye so that I don't lose a friend? That's not what's happening in the world. We're so quick to try to find our peace and get away from people. We're losing good people. So what I'm doing is not so much of looking for God's people. I'm looking for the God in people.
Okay.
So when you find that they have that spark of hope, now I'm not saying I make mistakes, fall down all the time. I get back up, I repent, and I say I'm sorry. So we can change this overnight, I like to think, with one good election. If we sit back and say, hey, let's use some common sense, Republicans and Democrats. Let's use some common sense. Has things gotten better over the past 30 years? No, they haven't. Homes are now almost unaffordable. They've allowed Wall Street to start buying starter homes. So they're trying to make everyone a renter. Minimum wage, although a lot of people say I don't make minimum wage, there's a reason it's been frozen. And that's the thing you need to think about. There are a lot of people who are on minimum wage, especially people who come here as immigrants, who may have come legally. Those people are stuck on that minimum wage because that's another form of oppression and slavery. And who's doing that? Every time we vote and they don't change anything. Every time we go in there and say it's the lesser of two evils, or they're fighting for democracy. Well, the damn Democrats are keeping candidates away from people vision. They said it's only Joe Biden. We're removing the people from the primaries. So the Democrats are the ones that are really a danger to democracy. And you said yourself, we're not even a damn democracy. We're a republic.
Well, that is a fact. But
one nation under God for which it stands, ain't it?
Well, now the thing is, we do not have one nation.
We do not.
As you know. And this so-called concept of one nation under God never has happened in the history of the world. It will not happen anytime soon unless now you are that prophet. And I'm going to tell you like now, right now. I just met you a few weeks ago. You might be that chosen one, far as I know.
I'm nobody, sir.
But I can tell you right now, what you are saying not going to happen in the next 500 to the 1,000 years, and we will not be here. But it's good to have someone like you that believe in this pie in the sky idea, where there's going to be humanity spread throughout the world, where everyone will love each other. There will be few wars. There will not be homeless people.
That's right.
There will not be a lot of selfish individuals that's controlling the people. That is not going to happen anytime soon, and I guarantee it won't. There will be a destructive period, which I have been proclaiming for some time, and I told you it's going to be called World War III, Part 1 and Part 2. The Bible even says,
it does.
Listen to me now, the Bible even says it's going to happen, and it says conclusively, and I mention this all the time,
Fire.
It's going to be fire next time.
Right.
And that's why I'm telling you to organize, get yourself together, get those ideas out of your mind that's 500 to 1,000 years
Now, let me tell you something, Mr. Dr.
Now, I know this is not the proper way to do it, but this is the way I'll do it. Cut me off.
I don't mean to cut you off. I'm going to have to cut you off.
Cut me off.
Because the power of the word is extremely important to me. So when you trying to tell me it's going to take 500 years, I need you to not say that. My ears can't hear it. My God doesn't need any time to do anything. So y'all want to be beat into it, forced into it, to love each other?
No,
then get none. We can do that. That's on the table.
No.
But see, there's another side to the set you on fire part. There's the, if my people who are called by my name will turn from their wicked ways, I'll heal the land. That's an option too. So you don't have to go down the road of destruction if we, God's people, that's why I say God's people, seek his face, which is the face, which is love. God's face is love for one another. If we do that, if the good people would be as loud as these damn bad people.
That will never happen, sir.
Yes, it will, because once again, if one good person stand up and another one stand up, then they will get their asses up. See, right now we got a lot of bad people out here standing up,
well,
and they yelling.
We're going to have to take this to the next show.
We're gonna have to.
We have a show called the Doc and Sock Show, and we're going to come on in a couple of hours. Because I'm going to tell you right now, I want you to sit in with me, because I don't want the people to believe that they don't have hope, and I don't want people to believe that the Bible is not a real document, because God says it'll be fire next time, not general humanity. And it's not going to be 500 to 1,000 years before we have fire next time. Now, your generation, that future generation that you're talking about, and I call you a futurist, that is nowhere on the books at this time. It's not part of the world's record. That's in your mind, and you have a mind that has been diluted with what I call I have to say satanic ideas. Yeah.
Ideas.
That's
trying
right.
To help
you here
the
talking
people.
about God's people, Mr. Williams,
Yeah.
and there are very few. That's why they had that disturbance. Let me finish, and then we're going to call this thing over and come back in an hour or two. That's why they had so much disturbance in heaven between God and the devil. He was getting so influential in heaven until God told him to get the hell out of heaven, and I'm going to send you to a place. I'm just paraphrasing, and we're going to take this up in the next hour or two.
Because
and
that story right there is
ladies and gentlemen,
bad.
we are going to end this show. We'll be back in an hour with the Doc and Sock Show. Mr. William has agreed, you just heard it, to be on the show.
I'll be there.
And we are going to talk about politics, economic development, the future, and my job is to teach you how to organize right now while you're alive and practice the concepts that you hear on this show from birth to death, so you can have at least 300 years of positivity in your life and your relatives' lives, your children and grandchildren's lives, and you will have peace and harmony. And you don't have to worry about living in hell on earth and, like Mr. William, think you're going to go somewhere and have God's people looking out for you. No such thing. So stay tuned, and we'll be back in an hour, ladies and gentlemen, with the Doc and Sock Show.